Hello everybody, I'm away today, but you saw me this morning at registration and I've explained a few things, but this is really for your teacher and for you so that you can get on with some work. The last time I was away you did some fantastic work on Halloween. So here we are, it's Monday and it's the lesson before lunch, so let's get cracking. On our classwork today we are going to be looking at another holy book which is called the Tripitaka, and that is part of the holy texts of Buddhism. So, having done something about the Bible, the Torah for Judaism, the Quran for Islam, and now we're moving on to Buddhism. And the best way to start this is to actually see a little bit about the origins of the religion. And the best way to do this is to have a look at the story of Buddha and how the religion came to be. So I'm just going to go through the presentation with you, and then I'm going to tell you what you need to do afterwards. Okay, so we'll have a look at this, the story of Buddha. And Buddhism started in India, and this is where this chap here you will have seen came from. So you will have seen almost certainly statues of the Buddha around the place, and quite often people say he's much larger than this, but he looks like a very jolly and very contented fellow, because that is the idea of Buddhism, is to find a state of well-being. And Buddhists will spend their time in life trying to get closer and closer to something called nirvana, which is a happy state on earth where you've lived a good life in the ways that the Buddha has told people to do. So that is the first slide, and now we've got the Buddha. Now, the Buddha was called Siddhartha Gautama. I'm going to get rid of myself now. There we go, Gautama. And he was born into a royal family in Nepal, and for many years lived within the palace walls, away from the sufferings of life, such as old age, illness, and death. So, really unaware of what was really going on in the outside world. So, let's just have a little look at what else we can say about this fellow. So, there we go. So, he didn't know anything about what was going on. However, one day he married, he had children, and then he decided that it was a really good time to go outside the palace to see what was actually going on outside. So perhaps with the responsibilities of fatherhood, he decided he needed to find out what his children were being born into, maybe. So when he went out there, it wasn't so great. So he witnessed an old man, a sick man, and the corpse of a dead man. So unfortunately, he saw the reality of life and the way things are, not as good as in his palace necessarily. So he was very worried by that, and so he learnt that sickness, age, and death comes to everyone, even a wealthy person. And I think he was probably worried about his children and just in general that people who are wealthy don't see the real world. So there we are. So a holy man outside, dressed in rags with only a begging bowl in his hand, and despite owning nothing but a bowl, he looked so calm and at peace. So perhaps we're thinking that the tripperies of wealth might distract people from the true meaning of life in terms of being happy and at peace. So he wondered to himself, how on earth could somebody be as happy when they had so little? So, having seen all of these horrible things, the death and the destruction and the poverty and all those kind of things, he wanted to find out whether there was more outside to life than these horrible things. So he decided to leave his riches behind and go and find out for himself. So he went on a bit of a mission to find out what life was all about and whether there was more than just sickness. So he found himself dressed as a monk, and he got rid of all of those rich things, and he went to meditate under a tree, a Bodhi tree, and promised himself that he wouldn't rise again until he found the truth. So he had to sit and he had to meditate And he had to get himself in a state where he was just thinking about being present and understanding what it's like to be. So he thought carefully about the past and the present and the future, and the foresights he saw when he left his palace. So, after some time, he realized that there was a way for people to end their pain and sadness. And within this moment, he suddenly became wise and what we call enlightened. So, having become enlightened, he decided to teach people about what he had realized, and people began to call him Buddha, or teacher. And he taught them the Four Noble Truths. And this is the code, the start of the code the Buddhists lived their lives by. So, it may seem fairly obvious. The first noble truth was the fact that suffering exists. Now, we all know that, but unless you actually take that on board and you say, right, okay, this is what we're going to deal with. Suffering exists. Lives are a struggle. The second thing was about the cause of suffering. And our own difficulties, perhaps, are causing the suffering. The way we think may be what's causing our suffering. So, those are the first two. You will find out what the next noble truths are. What I would like you to do is I would like you now, as we look back at our classwork, to have a look at the this little clip here, which is about the story of Lord Buddha, similar to the way I've told it. But see if you can recognize some of the story here, and you may pick up some new details also. So, the Buddha story sequence cards. There we go. So these will be in an envelope for you, and they're cut up nice and neatly. And what I want you to do as a record of this lesson and discovering the story, I'd like you to take them and stick them into your books, probably 2 to a page, and I would like you to put them in the correct order. I suggest you don't stick them in until you've worked out which order they should go in. Now, we want to make this very neat, so you have a title and date. We know what the date is. That will be tomorrow, the 16th of November. And the title, underline neatly, the story of the Buddha. Now, once you have finished that, what I would like you to do is I would like you to write neatly after it your own version of the story of the Buddha and how the Buddha came to be. So, doesn't have to be hugely long, but I'd like you to write that in your own words from what you have learned in the lesson. So try and do as much as you can of that, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow morning at registration. I hope that's all clear. Enjoy your lunch halfway through the lesson, and if your teacher wishes to show you this again to remind you what you need to do, that might be a good idea.